I love Gravity Falls. Even after 10 years, oh god, I feel old. The show still holds a special place in my heart. The series focused on the adventures of twin siblings, Dipper and Mabel Pines, being sent to their great Uncle Stan tourist trap home, the Mystery Shack, in the supernatural town of Gravity Falls. I still remember watching the previews for the show back when I was a freshman in high school and being intrigued by the show due to its promise of mystery and supernatural adventure. By the end of the first episode, I was hooked onto the show faster than Mabel was onto Smile Dip. Not only did the first episode do a stellar job at introducing the characters, establishing the tone of the show, and giving me plenty of laughs, but the ending of Stan going behind a vending machine made me want to know what secret Stan was hiding. Watching Gravity Falls was a wild ride for me, since not only was the show immensely enjoyable, but it was also the gateway to me discovering the concepts of fandoms, with Gravity Falls being the first fandom I ever joined. Joining the fandom helped me discover that the series was a lot more than I originally thought it was, since I discovered that each episode was full of secret codes ready to be deciphered, in which while some may have been silly, others were foreshadowing important events. Now at that point in my life, I have seen a lot of cartoons. Some would argue too much. But I have never watched a cartoon that did something like this before. This made me realize that the series was something special. And Disney must have noticed that too, since the amount of special treatment they gave to the show was insane. Not only did it get a crazy amount of merchandise, but during the second season, they would make promos that would tease the fans for their obsession with the show, promote big episodes by having the creator himself, Alex Host, be in them, and even had a Gravity Falls special called Between the Pines, where Alex talked about the making of the show and shared juicy new information about it. Seriously, I cannot remember ever seeing an animated series get this level of treatment before or after Gravity Falls. I was obsessed with the show while it aired. I always made sure to watch the new episode when it premiered, read various fan theories, discussed my own theories about the show, would constantly go on Google to see when Gravity Falls would come back during the agonizing hiatuses, and bought a bunch of Gravity Falls merchandise. When the series finally ended, I was blubbering like a time baby. Yet even with the show being over for 6 years, the fandom lives on, with the series still being discussed in high praise as fans continue to still create Gravity Falls content. As you can guess from this video, I'm one of those people. So sit back, relax, and enjoy just one of the few Gravity Falls videos I'll be making to celebrate the show's 10-year anniversary, starting with a series review. The first season is pretty episodic for the most part, as each episode would have the twins deal with some new mystery or supernatural element of the week that ties into a lesson they have to learn or strengthen the bond between characters. Though one of the great things about the series was how it played around with those elements and would put a clever spin on it most of the time. Mabel's boyfriend is a zombie? Nope. Just a bunch of gnomes pretending to be a kid so they can make Mabel their gnome queen. When an unknown assailant beheads the wax statue of Uncle Stan, who is revealed as the culprit? Cursed wax figures who are attempting to kill Stan. After Mabel embarks on an adventure with Dipper to uncover a hidden government conspiracy on who discovered Gravity Falls to prove to Pacifica that she can be serious, what happens? Mabel realizes that she should be proud of her silliness and not care about what Pacifica or anyone else thinks of her, so she chooses to not tell Pacifica the truth about her ancestor. But since Dipper didn't have a big emotional arc, he decides to rub the fact that Pacifica's ancestor not only didn't discover the town, but was a huge loser in her face. This resulted in one of the best lines in the series.
Man, revenge is underrated. That felt awesome!
Yet for all the hilarious jokes and fun adventures, one of the best things about Season 1 and frankly, the series as a whole is Dipper and Mabel's relationship. Individually, both are fun characters to watch. With Dipper, he's a dorky awkward kid who loves the supernatural and mystery that tends to be the sarcastic voice of reason in a lot of situations. Meanwhile, Mabel is a very creative and optimistic kid who is a social butterfly that thinks outside the box. But together, they form a dynamic duo that perfectly complements each other. The show makes it clear that even if they sometimes butt heads and tease each other, they're always there for the other, since they just don't see each other as their sibling, but their best friend, which I find to be very wholesome. I also appreciate how the series treats the twins as equals, both in terms of being main characters and being a team. In a lot of stories involving duos, typically the smarter one of the two will be the leader while the other will be treated as their sidekick. But that isn't the case at all in this series, since while Dipper may come off as more intellectual due to being more serious about things, Mabel is just as smart as him. It's just that she showcases her genius in a less serious manner compared to Dipper's. The show even cleverly hammered in the fact that Mabel isn't Dipper's sidekick with this joke.
You solved the mystery after all.
I couldn't have done it without my sidekick.
No offense, Dipper, but you're the sidekick.
What? Says who? Are people saying that?
Though Dipper and Mabel aren't the only great main characters, as they are accompanied by several others, including their con artist great uncle, Grunkle Stan, handyman child Seuss, and lazy teenage slacker, Wendy. Stan is easily one of the most iconic characters from the series between his many memorable quotes, crass nature, and having zero respect for the law.
Grunkle Stan, is that legal?
When there's no cops around, anything's legal.
Though despite his conman demeanor and pessimistic views, Stan is just a big old softy who truly cares about his family. His relationship with the twins is fantastic, as through the course of the show, you see them grow closer to each other. I love how despite being complete opposites in terms of personality, Mabel and Stan connect due to Mabel having some of his mischievousness and teasing nature. And while Stan and Dipper argue a lot, Stan actually gives Dipper some good advice and is tough on him to help raise his self-esteem. Seuss, meanwhile, is a great comic relief character. Even though he can be a bit dumb at times, his dumbness is almost always more endearing than annoying, with him sometimes being self-aware when he does something dumb and wondering why he did that. Though just like Mabel, Seuss is pretty smart, it's just that he expresses his intellect in a less serious manner. I especially love his dynamic with Dipper and Mabel since he's able to connect with the twins in a childlike manner, but can also serve as a pillar of guidance for them. And rounding out the core cast is Wendy, who, and I'm going to be bluntly honest here, is just okay. She's not a bad character by any means, since she is this cool, sarcastic daredevil teen that can kick butt, but that's pretty much all there is to her character. She never felt like a main member of the cast due to how little she did, with her biggest contribution to the story being that she served as Dipper's crush. But credit where it's due, I do like how after the crush storyline is resolved, the show emphasizes that Wendy pretty much sees Dipper as her best friend, with Weird Mageddon highlighting their friendship. I just wish more was done with her character overall. Now while the first season may have been mostly episodic, there were several ongoing arcs in the background, such as the mystery of what was behind the vending machine and Gideon's desire to steal the shack. Gideon was the primary antagonist of the first season, and he was an entertaining one to say the least. He's the typical kid psychopath character akin to Darla Dimple or Cozy Glow, in which he acts cute and innocent to the general public, but in reality he's, well, a psychopath. He got a lot of the hallmarks of the trope, in which despite being fiendishly clever and being able to boss his parents around, he's also still a kid who has kid tendencies. Gideon was introduced early on in Season 1 as the kid's sidekick and Stan's arch nemesis, with him developing an unrequited crush on Mabel. Unable to tell Gideon that she doesn't feel the same way, Dipper volunteers to do it for her. This later results in him trying to kill Dipper since he believes he was getting in the way of his relationship with Mabel. Again, psychopath. From there on, Gideon would appear several more times throughout the season. Sometimes in a significant manner, such as in Little Dipper, in which he concocts various plans to steal the shack from Stan, only to fail hilariously. Other times he would appear in a smaller manner in which he would simply antagonize Stan. I'm always a sucker for rivalries between an elderly character and a kid character, so seeing these two butt heads with each other was a riot. Season 1 culminates into a two-part finale in which in part 1, after failing to retrieve the deed for the shack once again, Gideon summons everyone's favorite wisecracking insane triangle demon, Bill Cipher, to get the code from Stan's mine. When he first debuted, I was surprised and entranced by how cartoony he was. The series is full of wacky characters, but Bill stuck out as an oddity from even the wackiest of them due to his eccentricity. Not only did he take joy in the most disturbing things such as removing teeth from deer, but I got the sense that he was a lot smarter and more powerful than one would initially think given his seemingly omnipotent powers. His appearance is also jarring since this all-powerful creature is just a Cyclops triangle with a top hat and a bow tie. And because of his chaotic nature, I wasn't sure if he was an actual villain or just a chaotic neutral trickster, something that even Alex himself wasn't sure of yet at the time. While Bill may have failed to retrieve the code from Stan's mine due to the interference of the Trins and Zeus, the episode ends on an ominous note with Gideon retrieving the deed for the shack. This leads into the second part of the finale that shows the heroes in their darkest hour, with Gideon now owning the shack and Stan deciding to send the Trins home since he can't take care of them anymore. Even though logically I knew this wasn't going to be the end, the episode was still able to make it feel authentic. But of course, our heroes prevail, with Stan revealing Gideon as a fraud, said 9-year-old villain being sent to prison, the Trins getting to stay in Gravity Falls, and Dipper even deciding to tell Stan about Journal number 3. Yet while the first 19 minutes of the finale is fantastic, it truly gets wild in the last few minutes as it finally gives payoff to the mystery we saw in the very first episode. Not only is it revealed that there's a secret laboratory behind the vending machine, but we get the jaw-dropping reveal that Stan has had Journal number 1 the entire time. And if that wasn't crazy enough, he uses old read journals to power up some strange machine that was hinted at earlier in the finale, with the episode just ending like that. To say I was losing my mind would be an understatement because holy axolotl! What a way to end the first season. So many questions bounced around in my mind. Why did Stan have Journal number 1? When he said we have them all, who was he referring to? And what did the machine do? The entire fandom was itching for answers and we had to wait a year to start getting some. After what felt like an eternity of waiting, the second and final season came out with it being even bigger and better than the first season. Whereas the first season was very episodic, Season 2 changes the game by becoming a more serialized series, with the first half of the season revolving around Dipper's goal to learn who wrote the journals and what happened to him. I was very pleased with this change since while the Monster of the Week episodes were fun, it was nice to see the show lean more into the mystery aspect. Almost every new episode of the first half provided a new piece of the puzzle, but also a new question, since for every step they made towards uncovering the secrets of the author, they'd have to deal with a new obstacle. Yet among diving further into the overarching mystery, the season gave the spotlight to several characters such as Zeus, Old Man McGucket, and Pacifica. fans got to learn more about what goes on in Sue's daily life and why he has such a strong attachment to Stan, witnessed the tragic backstory of how McGucket became the way he is, and saw that there were layers to Pacifica beyond being the stereotypical mean girl of the series before even forming a friendship with the twins. I love what was done with these characters. I always appreciate it when the series decides to add some depth to its comic relief characters such as Seuss and McGucket, since it helps make them more three-dimensional. And while I didn't expect Pacifica to get a redemption arc, the way they handled her arc was done pretty well, even though it was done in the span of 2 episodes. Though yeesh. It further shows how Wendy got screwed over since Pacifica, a side character that wasn't even originally meant to have a major role in the series, had not 1 but 2 episodes, whereas Wendy got none. The first half of Season 2 eventually culminated in a mid-Season 2 finale, Not What He Seems, an episode that was heavily promoted to be the biggest episode of Gravity Falls at the time. The episode definitely lived up to the hype, with it being full of twists and turns that had me on the edge of my seat, with the mysterious countdown of the machine, Stan getting arrested by government agents, and the twins attempting to prove Stan innocent only to learn in the process that Stan may not even be who he says he is. This all builds up to the jaw-dropping ending in which when a mysterious figure emerges from the wreckage of the portal, they're revealed to be not only the author of the journals, but Stan's twin brother, Stanford Pines.
What?
Even though this may have been a twist that clever fans saw coming, it still sent total shockwaves throughout the fandom, with reactions ranging from the thrill of calling the twist to the shock of said twist. I was definitely in the latter category, since while I was aware of the theory about Stan having a twin brother who was the author of the journals, and it didn't sound implausible, I still didn't expect it to happen. With the mystery of the journals finally being solved after a season and a half, along with Stan and Ford's past being explained, the show shifts into 2 new narratives with Ford's arrival. Preventing Bill from getting his hands on the interdimensional rift, and the possibility that Dipper and Mabel's relationship could fall apart the way that Stan and Ford's relationship did. Ford was a fantastic addition to the main cast, with him being voiced by J. Jonah Jameson himself, J.K. Simmons. He's a very fun, eccentric character with how he can be a badass adventurer 1 minute and a giant dope the next. His dynamic with the twins is also pretty great. With Dipper, they're kindred spirits who bond over their love of the supernatural, with the 2 of them growing closer as the season progresses. And while we unfortunately didn't get a lot of interactions between him and Mabel, I appreciate the fact that he never looked down on her. Given his intellect and interest, it would have been so easy to have Ford see Mabel as nothing but a nuisance since she wasn't more like Dipper, but instead, Ford finds Mabel to be charming. With Stan, however, Ford is distant and cold towards him. Despite spending the last 30 years trying to bring him back, Ford doesn't even thank Stan for his efforts, found his brother's action to be reckless, and wants him to leave at the end of the summer. His refusal to appreciate what Stan went through is just one of many examples that showcases Ford's biggest character flaw, his arrogance. Not only did his arrogance prevent him from understanding everything Stan went through to bring him back, but it also what allowed Bill to play him like a fiddle, believe that only he and Dipper alone could defeat Bill, and how he was confident that Mabel would be fine going home without Dipper since he observed that Mabel is a very confident person. The official Journal No. 3 book especially highlights Ford's arrogance, since it's full of entries that displays Ford's overconfidence and pride. Now, while Ford is a fun character, his late arrival on the show doesn't allow for a lot to be done with him. As I mentioned earlier, we barely got to see him and Mabel interact that much, and apart from 2 episodes, we don't see him and Stan interact again till the actual finale. Similarly, the possibility that Dipper and Mabel could split apart like Stan and Ford isn't explored as much either, but unlike with Ford, I think it works much better because of how subtle it is. This comes to fruition in Dipper and Mabel vs. the Future, in which Ford offers Dipper a chance to be his apprentice, something he's hesitant at first since it would mean being away from Mabel. But when he later accepts Ford's offer after rescuing him from the spaceship, Mabel, overhearing this on the walkie-talkie, shatters her heart. She was already having a terrible day as she began to realize that the future isn't going to be as great as she thought it was going to be, but took comfort in knowing that she would at least still have Dipper by her side. With her being unable to handle the fact that things change, she ends up making a deal with Blendin, who offers her the chance to prevent summer from ever ending in exchange for the Rift. Mabel gives in to the temptation of his promise and gives him the Rift, only for it to be revealed that Blendin is being possessed by Bill, with him destroying the Rift and kicking off the Worldmageddon saga. Now, a lot of people have called Mabel's action here selfish and fully put the cause of Worldmageddon on her shoulders, but I find that to be incredibly unfair. Yes, what she did was selfish, but I feel like a lot of people are ignoring that 1, she was emotionally vulnerable and wasn't thinking clearly when Bill approached her, and 2, she had no idea what the Rift even was, since if she did, I fully believe that she wouldn't have given it to Blendin due to knowing how dangerous it is. Heck! It's partially Ford's fault that Worldmageddon happened, since he only chose to entrust Dipper with the information about the Rift. So for all the people who hate Mabel for this moment, how about realizing that this isn't entirely her fault and that she wasn't in her best headspace at the time? Angry rant now aside, the Worldmageddon saga is absolutely bonkers in all the best ways, as Gravity Falls is turned into a nightmarish landscape with the stakes being raised higher than they have ever been before, as the heroes have to figure out how to defeat Bill. These final episodes are filled to the brim with all the trademarks of what makes Gravity Falls such a fantastic series. Nightmarish visuals that makes you wonder how the heck did the show get away with it, incredibly dark jokes, a thrilling adventure, fantastic character moments, and delivering on the feels. There are so many moments from the Worldmageddon saga that I love. Bill Cipher just being his delightfully psychotic self, highlighting just how strong Mabel and Dipper bond with each other are, that it was enough to break the mental hold Mabel's Utopia prison had on her. Various callbacks to past adventures along with the return of characters that have been introduced throughout the show. The Mystery Shack being turned into a giant robot that resulted in an epic fight as an electric guitar version of the theme song plays. Stan sacrificing his memory to defeat Bill in order to save his family, which makes Ford realize that Stan was a better man than he ever was. Ford inviting Stan to travel the world with him like they say they would when they were kids. Stan making Zeus the new owner of the Mystery Shack. And Dipper and Mabel saying their goodbyes as they prepare to leave Gravity Falls. Now sure, I could critique some of the things about the saga that bugs me, such as Gideon's heel-face tone, Pacifica's weird characterization, or how Stan getting his memory back is arguably a bit of a cop-out, but those are more so minor gripes than actual complaints. Plus, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't happy that Stan got his memories back. While I may still get emotional whenever I rewatch the last few minutes of the finale, I take joy in the fact that the series ended on such a high note. While it may have a few flaws, I still find Gravity Falls to be a phenomenal series, with it not only still being my favorite Disney animated series 10 years later, but one of my favorite shows in general. As much as I would love to have a Gravity Falls special on Disney Plus or another graphic novel, I am content with how the series ended. But what do you think of Gravity Falls? When did you first start watching the series? What are some of your favorite episodes and characters? Did any of the big twists surprise you, or did you see them coming? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and click the bell so you'll be notified when I make a new video. If you want to follow me on social media, you can find the links to them in the description box below. Until then, I'm Meowth here.